if you're wanting to start to build towards an exit, you have to start to architect a team that is bigger than yourself.
We want our salespeople to do the thing that they do best. What they're excellent at is being in front of the customer. And the other thing that we did is we got extremely serious about recurring revenue.
I like to joke of recurring revenue is the eighth wonder of the world.
If you're not selling technology today with recurring revenue, I would say get serious about that as quick as possible. So if for some reason a customer is telling me they're not okay with subscriptions or whatever, maybe they're not the fit for us.
And the trade is cash. The most expensive customer is the next new one, and the least expensive is retainment.
Welcome to Entry and Exit. My name's Collin. This is my co-host, Steven. We are here to unpack the security and fire alarm industry piece by piece. We wish we had a resource like this when we were getting into the industry and trying to figure out how to scale a security and fire alarm business. So we said, hey, let's do it ourselves. Let's talk through the industry, how to get in, what to look for, how to scale and build your business, and then what do people look for when they're trying to buy your business.
Yeah, that's right. And so we called it Entry and Exit. It's kind of a double meaning. Obviously, from a security perspective, securing a building and entering and exiting that, but also us entering the market. And someday, in some way, shape, or form, I think we'll exit, and we've been acquiring people who are exiting. And so all of that led to Entry and Exit.
That's right. We have had the opportunity to purchase several different companies of various different sizes, but also have gotten to walk along a lot of friends that have sold their businesses and seen the different types of buyers that have been interested in their business and what they look for, which has really informed our kind of thought process on what is it that we should be doing today to prepare ourselves for some type of exit in the future.
Yep.
What are those things? I think a big mistake a lot of operators make is they wait till 12 months before they're ready to sell, before they get their business ready to sell. And I think we should be starting on that today and build those operational efficiencies from day one. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to jump in and talk more about how to scale and how to grow. We've obviously not done an exit. We'll tell you what we do know. We'll tell you what we've seen with our friends, but we've done a whole bunch of entry. We've purchased a lot of businesses and we've been able to grow pretty successfully.
I think let's scoot back and talk about our start. And, you obviously had some background in the industry and I did not. And, you got on a whiteboard and went after it, explaining why I should really respect and value this industry and be interested in acquiring. And so I think almost go back to that whiteboard. And for people that aren't familiar, like, why is this industry so attractive? Why are you so fired up about it? No pun intended. Because we do fire alarms. Dad joke.
And because you've got a fire going on behind your head, or you did.
I do. Every 6 or 7 little rotations, you get a little fireplace back there.
Yeah,
it's fun.
It's great.
For those of you that are just listening, I've got a little screen in the background with a little fireplace. So yeah, take it away. I mean, just kind of unpack what you did for me all those years ago, and maybe some background, at Brevo on the manufacturing side too.
Yeah, absolutely. I had an interesting kind of entry, if you will, into the industry. I worked for a manufacturer, actually one of our manufacturers at Alarm Masters today. It's a software company. They were really the first cloud software company in the physical security space. And I was a channel sales rep. I started as a rep, moved up into management. And my whole job was to meet with independent security operators to enable them and help them sell more of my product. What ended up happening is I ended up building a really tight relationship with a lot of these owners, and getting to know a lot about their business. And some of them were really cool and would let me understand the intimacy of their business, like their books and their employee struggles and how they are thinking about exiting their business. And so that was a really great perspective. And what I found when I was doing this, and this was in my mid to late 20s, I found a lot of guys that were not doing the traditional things that I had seen from other businesses in terms of digital marketing and outbound sales and, high-end technology, and they were extremely successful. These were not sophisticated operators. Many of them were from the field that were just working in the industry and providing a great service at a fair price. They were incredibly successful. So I ended up doing some other things in my career, and then I ended up becoming an entrepreneur. And there are many days that Stephen could tell you about where I get in front of a whiteboard and if you get me on a whiteboard, I'm going to be there for a minute. And we were together talking about one of our other businesses, actually. And I said, man, I got this crazy idea. We got to talk about this. And the idea was, I really think we need to buy a business in the physical security space. And I think Stephen at the time, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, like I think you thought door-to-door sales, ADT, Vivint, that was sort of your perception of the alarm industry.
Yeah, I did not have a depth of understanding on the commercial side, which our business today is roughly 80% commercial. And, love our residential customers, but we definitely are focused on the commercial side. But I didn't really have a lot of understanding, just super basics, right? I mean, everyone's seen some sort of keypad to access a door, an alarm system. I get the idea of a fire alarm, sure, but I didn't really understand the commercial side of the business. And you're right. Like when you were so fired up, I'm like, isn't this industry already completely swallowed up by megacorp, the ADTs and, that sort of thing. So you started to kind of educate me and, explain to me why I should be, at least 50% as excited as you were.
Yeah. Well, I think we got there. We got there to the 50%.
We got there.
I mean, I think maybe a little more. I'll say this though, when I was early in my entrepreneur career, I had a lot of friends that were buying businesses. This was 6-7 years ago, and they were buying businesses. And I thought, oh man, that's so interesting. I'd never thought about buying a business. My dad was an entrepreneur. He started a business. So I saw how hard that was. Never really thought about buying a mature business. And I saw some friends purchasing businesses, and I remember them saying, man, 10% of the business has recurring revenue every month, 10%. And there, some of our other buddies would react like, oh my gosh, you have 10% recurring revenue of your total. That's insane. And I remember thinking, well, the security industry is like 50 to 60% of their revenue is recurring. And the other, 30 or 40% is reoccurring in the form of, service and maintenance work.
Right.
And so the light bulb kind of went off in my head, and we sat in front of a whiteboard, and I painted this picture for Stephen about why I think the physical security industry is so strong. And a lot of it had to do with the 3 different types of revenue, which would be recurring RMR, recurring monthly revenue. That would be the subscriptions, the monitoring, the fire alarm monitoring that comes in, the reoccurring revenue, which would be service, inspections. These are the smaller ticket kind of day-to-day run rate revenue. And then the larger stuff, which would be project revenue. The other thing that I was really aware in this industry is the switching cost is pretty high, right? So if you have a plumber that comes out to your business to service something in your business, you may have a good experience, but there's no real reason you couldn't switch to another plumber the next time you have an issue. There's no real switching costs to do that. So that was really appetizing to us because there is such a high switching cost in the security and particularly in the fire alarm industry. And then another thing that we really liked was just the barrier to entry. You have to have the right type of licensing and experience to get into the industry. That's becoming harder even now, which, good for us. So the barriers to entry also kind of played a part in it. But I was really psyched up about this idea that you purchase customers on evaluation of their recurring monthly revenue. And most of these customers, will say 90% of them stay with you because of the switching cost is so high. And so the typical multiples in this industry are between the low 30s and the upper 30s. So that's really like 3 years. So effectively, if you keep that customer for 3 years and you don't have them spend another dime with you in any type of other revenue, you're going to make that revenue back on the valuation within 3 years. And so that was really intriguing to me. That kind of opened my eyes a lot to how you could scale this industry. And then the last thing that I really got excited about was, man, there's more than one scope of work. If you're an electrician, you're selling electrician services. In this industry, we've really got 5 different scopes of work that we can
Mhm.
sell to our customers. And this is technology. So this technology is evolving as quickly as your iPhone or your laptop. And think about how many iPhones you've had in the last 10 years. 3 or 4 iPhones potentially for those super users, one new one every single year. And so that kind of intrigued me too, because I was thinking, okay, well, if we're going to upgrade our technology every few years and there's 5 scopes of work, surely they're doing something every couple of years. And I was right. The stat is every 1.5 years there's a security life safety technology purchase. So that was the stuff we talked about on the whiteboard that I got
Yeah.
hyped about.
Yeah. I think it's like the profile of this industry hits on a lot of things that just the general searcher community is after, right? So there's moat on the license side. That was exciting to me. And I didn't fully appreciate that until after we had acquired the first business. Like I didn't fully understand how advantageous that is. And then, and you hear that in HVAC and, some other industries, home service, especially, that the licensure side kind of insulates you to a degree. In roofing, you can just go like spin up a new roofing company and there's not much to prevent 1,000 competitors in your market, right? So that was exciting. We both came from software sales backgrounds. We both understood the value of recurring revenue. And, I like to joke of recurring revenue is the 8th wonder of the world, makes me sleep well at night. And then you're right, the constant upgrade and upsell opportunities. And so all these different things, it's almost like, have you seen where they'll put together like the best football player in the NFL and they take like the legs of Lamar Jackson and like the arm of Josh Allen, for my football fans, you can geek out
the
with
elusiveness of Johnny Manziel, if you will.
Of course. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're not A&M homers at all.
No.
And so there's like these different traits of different businesses where just one of those things was kind of the desirable trait of the business, but this industry had several of those. So I did get pretty excited pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting too, because one of the thing that I think we talked about is when we looked around at the time, the businesses that were already in the industry, now our peers, there was not a large emphasis on organic sales in terms of digital marketing, robust sales process, high impact technology. Those things were just not really there. In fact, many of the operators that I had spent time with, if they had a salesperson, it was a singular salesperson, and there was no sales process. There was no real marketing. That salesperson was sort of a unicorn in terms of they had to be able to prospect. They had to be able to go out and find their own leads, do their own estimates. And so there was sort of this immature organic growth strategy in the industry. And I thought, man, any amount of digital marketing or sales process that we implement is going to reap benefit, even if we don't go all the way up to what some of these other industries are doing. Anything that we do is really going to be a net add. So I think that was also attractive to us. Steven and I both have kind of a digital marketing and sales background. So that's the thing that we get really excited about is how do we pull those levers to grow businesses? And I think we've seen a lot of that fruit since buying Alarm Masters.
Yeah. I mean, what we walked into was my sales strategy is I pick up the phone. My marketing strategy is I have none, except maybe I sponsor, what was it? Something at like the city level, like,
oh yeah.
I can't remember.
They did the local Texas Gulf Coast Alarm Association thing.
That's right. Okay, that's what it was. Yeah. And then from a technology perspective, it was like using this brutal legacy software platform that caused more pain than it helped. So our specific initial acquisition, I mean, all of those things across the board were painful realities that we walked into, but all opportunistic over the last few years.
Well, and I mean, to the credit of the owner that we purchased Alarm Master, he had some extremely loyal customers.
He did.
So despite the fact that he was, had no technology, no sales strategy, I remember, I remember the first week we bought the business, and he said, "Yeah, I don't have a pipeline or CRM. Obviously, I don't even have a spreadsheet. My rule of thumb is when I send a proposal to a customer, I never follow up with them because I don't want to be desperate. If they want to do work with us, they'll call me. I never follow up with opportunities." And that was staggering to me. As a sales guy, I was so desperate all the time for deals. I couldn't imagine not following up on deals. So, and honestly, to his credit, he was growing modestly
Yeah.
year over year, and he had customers that loved working with him and his wife, and
Yeah.
that some employees that have been around for decades. So it's not like all was lost, but we
No.
certainly had a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So then really over the last, 2.5 years, we've really gone down this journey of scaling up the business. And, in that first 6 to 12 months, I think the thing that was the most evident was the RMR growth, like the recurring revenue side, which really came organically. It took a little while on the technology side. It took a while to get the right people in seat on the sales side, but the initial kind of bump, I mean, and actually, you were really involved in that early on, was the kind of organic sales side in growing the RMR by nearly 50% in the first 12 months. So, I think we should share some of that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, we didn't come in and do a whole. I mean, in the first 6 months, we really didn't come in and do a whole bunch of impactful changes. We didn't. Did we even do the website in the first 6 months? I'm not even sure if we even redid the website. We certainly weren't running ads or any type of digital marketing strategy. The salesperson was me. I was also the project manager and the president and the bookkeeper and all the things.
Yeah, janitor.
The janitor. Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't like in day one we were rolling out a tremendous number of transformational changes in the business. What we were doing was just the small stuff that I think mattered a whole lot. So that was calling existing customers that had a large spend with us to just meet with them. So I remember in my first 6 months, I made it a goal to go visit our kind of top 25 customers in terms of volume and just put a face to a name. And over half of those visits resulted in pipeline, which was the seed that has now flourished into an orchard in our business in terms of our sales strategy.
Yeah.
But we really weren't doing anything. I mean, we didn't do a lot on the technology side. We were in the first 6 months really just trying to focus on closing every single thing that came in the door. And the other thing that we did is we got extremely serious about recurring revenue. And the way that looked for us was we would sell technology in this industry. Obviously, you could sell technology that has no recurring revenue attached to it. And that's what the prior owner was selling a lot of. And so we started to only sell technology that had recurring revenue attached to it. And that really saw some pretty significant growth for us because every sale now had a little bit of recurring revenue that was accompanied by it. And we got so serious about it that I basically put my foot down and said, "Hey, I'm not even really interested in selling a product that doesn't have RMR attached to it." So if for some reason a customer is telling me they're not okay with subscriptions or whatever, maybe they're not the fit for us. And that's how serious we were. And I'll say this, like, I think that was an advantage to us. I think there's a lot of operators out there that have owned their business for 20 years and they really want to scale and get serious about recurring revenue. But the thought of trying to put the effort behind doing something new and just selling and going 100% all in on recurring revenue technology is daunting. How do you quote it? How do you bill for it? How do you whatever? I mean, Stephen, how many times have we met with owners that said, "Man, 2 or 3 years ago, we got serious about recurring revenue and only started selling product with recurring revenue attached to it. And we have seen, 2x growth year over year." So if you're not selling technology today with recurring revenue, man, I would say get serious about that as quick
Well,
as possible. Reach out to us. We'd love to help with that.
yeah. And the trade is cash,
That's right.
right? Because people historically not selling, like recurring cloud solutions or things like that, are selling much larger upfront one-time jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're getting a pretty healthy gross profit on that. And they're taking that cash to the bank. And that feels
Right.
good. But
Mm-hmm.
that is not as valuable from an enterprise value if you're thinking about selling in the future, both looking back at historical financials and just in real time. Like that's just not as valuable as building up that recurring revenue. It's almost like the software industry, went away from these big, massive implementations, these big, massive implementation fees over the last couple decades. And even from an enterprise software perspective, heavily shifted to recurring revenue. That's what's happened here. And it's far more valuable to build a business predicated on recurring revenue versus cash from install. And so that's, and we do both. And I think that's an important point to make is we do take somewhat of a hybrid approach at this point to kind of balance that out.
Yeah. And there is options for that, right? So there is ways to take a hybrid approach. But you're right. If I could sell a $10,000 camera system with no recurring revenue, that may look like a $7,000 camera system with $100 of recurring revenue every month. And so, over 10 years, I'm going to be super happy about the trade that I made, but there is some short-term pain that's associated with that. You also have to get really comfortable educating your customers on the value of cloud subscriptions. There is for sure some subscription fatigue in this world.
Yeah.
I feel it. I mean, we feel it in our own business, right? And so you have to help educate the customer on why they should choose a cloud-based product. And honestly, it's not just lip service. It really does mutually align you with the customer. It is a better product. It is more secure. It is better from a total cost of ownership perspective to the customer.
Right.
So you got to get some reps in there to really not fold the first time your customer says, well, I don't really want to pay a subscription. It's like, okay, talk to me about that. Like, explain to me why is that? What do you think the alternative is, and kind of shape that narrative for them. So you got to have to get a little comfortable with that. You got to get some at bats. It's not like day one. I would say I definitely had a leg up because I was coming from a business that was the first cloud business or cloud manufacturer in the security industry. And so that was the number one objection I got every single day was I don't want to pay subscription. So I got super comfortable with that objection handling. But I think it just takes at bats. I think it just takes reps, getting better at it.
Yeah. And then one of the other things that we focused on both in that first 6 to 12 months and holistically is cross-sell, upsell. And that was a major thesis for us because when we looked, and it's still true to this day, we were improving. And, we like preach, go see your customers, your existing customers paying you every single month or quarter, a year is the easiest next revenue. And so we saw a book of accounts that often only had one line of service. And, when we have 4 or 5 different things that are core, especially on the commercial side, that we can sell, and we found a lot of low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, it was like every time I'd go visit a customer, one of 3 things would come up. They would either want to buy something. Hey, while you're here, can you look at my cameras? They had just bought something. Oh yeah, do y'all do cameras? Yeah. Yeah, we just bought. Wish I would have known. Just spent $20,000 on a new camera system. Or number 3, and I think people get discouraged about this, but they shouldn't. We'd get a frustrated customer. Oh man, our billing hasn't been right for 6 months. It's really annoying. And that is equally as valuable because if you can turn a frustration into resolution, you get you get goodwill, you establish some kind of connection point with your customer that then you can follow up on. Every customer interaction is going to get you closer to some type of sales. So if the more times you are interacting with that customer, you're getting closer to a sale. But here's the reality. It's actually more impactful when it's proactive reach out versus reactive. If the only time your customer is calling you is to update their billing information or to call in a service call or whatever to get your certificate of insurance, you're not really differentiating yourself. You're not really driving a lot of value. So we are trying to, one of the mottos in our business is we don't want the only time that a customer hears from us is when we send them their invoice. That's a mistake. We want our customers to hear from us when we're calling on them to introduce ourselves. And so that's a huge part of our strategy is go talk to your existing customers, even if it has been, I mean, literally, we reached out to some customers that said, I got my alarm system 25 years ago and have not talked to a soul from Alarm Masters in 25 years. Great to see ya. And we got to know these customers and they ended up, either wanting to buy something then or, giving us some really valuable information. So I would just, double down on that. I would say go all in. And we could probably spend a whole episode, and we probably will, on strategies to go generate, pipeline and projects from your existing account base.
So, these are all kind of positives, growth oriented, but at the same time, one of the things that we've done is we have found ways where maybe we had waste, or as we started running the business, things that kind of got away from us, like overtime is like a great example where, we just weren't really managing it necessarily proactively or holding people accountable as much as we should. We came from a heavy sales background. And so some of those more operational items slipped a bit at times. And so there's a few things that we found, estimation, just places where you can lose margin quickly if you don't kind of have your eye on the ball.
Yeah. Let me get out my, my book, my tome of all operational mistakes that we made and have continued to try to fix. Overtime's a big one, keeping track of your overtime. And it cuts both ways, by the way, by saying, and we learned this lesson early is by eliminating 100% of overtime, you actually pull guys off of jobs that if they would just wrap that job up in 30 or 45 more minutes, it would be better than them having to come back out. So you have to kind of hold that with a little bit of an open hand. And you got to create a process for escalation and make sure that whoever is approving that is actually taking a hard look at that request to understand what it is. I'll tell you another one is we live our life on service. We love service work here at Alarm Masters. It is the lifeblood of our business. It's how we win a lot of new customers. And so what that means is we've got guys in trucks on the road a lot, all over Houston. And we have not historically, and we're actually still working on this today, have not had a great strategy on what I would call route and scheduling optimization, finding not just how do we put the guys in the right geographic areas to limit time and mileage between appointments. Also, how do we increase the number of appointments? And also, how do we do skills-based routing? So, in this industry, it's, there's thousands, quite literally, maybe tens of thousands of different manufacturers. We work with a subset of hundreds of different systems, and not every guy is going to be great at every system. So what we have found is do the exercise to identify what guys are good at what systems and try to route them to those individual appointments so that they can be more efficient. If I can finish an appointment in an hour and a half versus 3 hours because I've got the right guy, that enables me to fit in another appointment on the schedule. And it also makes my customer happy because then I'm not there for 3 hours. And that's a win for everybody. Customers are generally not super psyched when you're there for 8 hours. And then the next time the issue pops up, you got another guy and he's there for 2 hours. And it's like, wait a second. Why was Bill able to do it in 2 and it took you 8? That's an uncomfortable conversation to have. And so there's a lot of operational efficiency that you have to take a hard look at. And Steven's right. We are not the operations guys. We are the sales and marketing and growth guys. And so we've learned a lot. And I'll say this, credit to the industry, man. Shout out to the industry. The operators in this industry, they're great. Like, we have met obviously hundreds of different operators across the United States. And everyone is collaborative and has been great to share, like, hey, here's how we handle things operationally.
Yep.
Here's what we do. Here's some kind of the battle scars. Here's the pitfalls. Avoid this and that. So we've learned a lot just by staying curious. But yeah, there's a lot of operational things to keep an eye on. And then even, how about this? Even I wouldn't, maybe this isn't operational, but estimation. Man, you can win and lose. You can win and lose big time on a job if you don't estimate that right. And I don't even mean you could win the job and still lose, right? Like I think anybody here would rather not have an unprofitable project. It'd probably be better for them to just not have had that project to begin with.
Yep.
So dialing in your estimation, I would say that's one of the areas we've gotten really tight on that I did not have experience in at all prior to walking in the industry. And I spent a significant amount of time doing the estimates and then looking at them after the job was closed to see how profitable were we and where were the pitfalls and who needs to look at what. And we can talk more about it another time, but we actually fully built kind of a center of excellence in our business where we have a few employees that all they do is estimates, and they follow what we call the estimation playbook that has a whole bunch of rules and kind of heuristics about how to do estimates. And anytime they want to go outside those bounds, they have to get approval.
Yeah.
And so that's really protected us pretty significantly.
That's extremely important in this industry. It's also transferable to, any type of contractor. Many industries, you're doing estimates that may have some subjectivity to them, and building in some margin. And there's just a level of prudence in doing that in a way that doesn't end up, kind of kicking in the pants later. And so we had a few of those.
A good guy kicked a lot in the pants. I'll say this is industry agnostic. This is something that I've seen in what I'm going to call service-based industries in general, particularly in B2B. I see this more business to business, commercial sales. Businesses and operators expect their salesperson that they hire to be a unicorn and to be able to do all of the things, right? So they expect them to be able to prospect, to find leads, to convert and nurture those leads, to start a sales cycle, to be able to solution and design the system, to be able to sell that system, to be able to do the estimate, to be able to do the demo for the software, to be able to present that pricing in a way that's effective, to hand that off to project management to ensure that there's collections and the project is staying at a gross profit. Man, the whole industry pretty much, except for us, bases their sales comp on gross profit dollars. And I would say that's a mistake. You want your salesperson focused on top line, and you want your operations department focused on, their gross profit. And I think there's some guardrails you have to put into place to make sure your salesperson's not doing something unwise. But what we have really found, and this is really something that Stephen and I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, found from our enterprise selling days, is when you get into some of these larger enterprise selling motions, they've got a different salesperson for every stage or segment of the sales process. So they have inside sales in the form of a sales development rep or a BDR doing the prospecting and lead generation. Then you've got account executives that are kind of running it mid-cycle. You've got solution engineers that are doing a lot of the design and solutioning and the demoing. And then you've got, first level sales managers who are helping present the pricing or making sure things are getting competitive. They're aligning with the executives and the customer. So we've really tried to implement that in our own business. And what we say is we want our salespeople to do the thing that they do best. Yeah. So we hire salespeople that are not great at solution design. They're maybe okay at cold calling, but what they're excellent at is being in front of the customer. When they're in front of the customer, they make the customer feel comfortable. They ask great questions. They're consultative. They're caring. They're empathetic. They're organized. And then we find SDRs, sales development reps, that are aggressive and direct and numbers driven and competitive and really want to set a lot of appointments. Then we find solution engineers that are, we've got profiles for all of these individual roles to enable our sales team to be able to scale. Because ultimately, if you can scale that sales team, you kind of get the $1 in, $4 out thing. And I think universally in the service industry, you just don't see that a lot. It's very, we would call full cycle salesperson. And I think
Right.
that's tough. I think you're going to get capped out.
Yeah. And that's really part of the issue with becoming a business that is valuable. When you build a team where, we see a lot of owners in this industry that are doing 3 jobs and they're working crazy hours, and they do sometimes. So a lot of times one of those 3 jobs is they are the salesperson,
Right.
they are the estimation department, and they are overseeing, all projects. And so if you're wanting to start to build towards an exit, there's several in this industry specifically, there are several different markers that are going to translate value. One of those is building a team that can continue to function without you, especially for people that are going to sell and walk away. Many sellers in this industry stay on at least for a period of time, 1, 2, 3 years, but you have to start to architect a team that is bigger than yourself. And along with that, we talked about it earlier, but this shift in mindset from cash to RMR is massive. That's another significant driver. Also kind of diving back into just the reoccurring revenue element, because it's more than just contracted recurring revenue. It is the full load of reoccurring revenue coming from your customer base, especially when you go up market, that a lot of these private equity groups or national strategics are looking at more than just your RMR.
Yeah, I think that getting a strategy for developing service revenue also is really important. That's another one where folks in the industry say, yeah, just service. What do you mean? I don't advertise service. I mean, just people call me and I pick up the phone, and the best operators in the market, they just answer and they're able to get out on site within 2 to 3 days. I would argue that we need to have a growth strategy for service, just like we do for organic installation or project work, right? So how do you do that? And we could spend a lot of time on that. But one way that we do that is we do proactive reach out to our customers. So monitoring stations send you trouble signals. A lot of people don't do anything with those unless it's a failure to communicate. And we will reach out to our customers, even if they have had a false alarm. So something like, I think the stats like 78% of burglar alarms that go off are false alarms. And so a lot of people ignore those. A lot of alarm companies ignore those, don't do anything with them because they assume they're a false alarm. We send a personalized note every single time. It does a couple things. One, if it is a true burglar alarm, like we want to check in with the customer, make sure everything's okay. But if it's a false alarm, it shows that we care. But also what happens is we start to establish a pattern and say, hey, this is your 3rd or 4th false alarm. Like, can we do something? Do you need to get a different system? Do we need to change process or technology to try to fix that problem? And so that develops proactive service calls. We also get, especially if they're on cloud-based technology, you get health reports. This many cameras are offline or whatever. And so then you can go back to the customer and try to help them. Hey, your camera's been down twice in the last month. Like, can we help with that? So I think developing a scalable channel for service is just as important. And I think that you're right. Buyers, particularly private equity buyers, care a lot about that. There's a great sales book out there called Predictable Revenue. It's basically our Bible here at Alarm Masters. And that is all private equity companies really want. That's really what all buyers of security businesses want, is they want to say, hey, if you did $5 million last year, how do we know you're going to do $5 million this year? A big red flag would be you have a single customer that's 50% of your revenue. Well, that's really scary. So that would be revenue concentration. So we would want to break that up. Another big, kind of yellow flag would be, oh, you have one sales guy that drives all of the revenue for your business. What happens when that sales guy or gal leaves the business? Do we have some type of key man risk? That, again, key man risk is not just owner risk. A lot of times it is, but it can also be key employees, and they'll look operationally. Oh, you've got one operations person that the whole business runs through, and that guy or gal is working 55 hours a week. So key man risk, I think, can permeate all through the organization. And so whenever
Yeah.
we are looking, but also whenever private equity companies are looking, they're looking at those things. They're looking at revenue concentration. They're looking at key man risk. They're looking at repeatable revenue. How do we find ways to generate more repeatable revenue and predictable revenue? And I think that's going to drive a lot of value.
Yeah. Also looking at attrition, trying to find, companies that are single digit, annualized attrition and, that are retaining, because the most expensive customer is the next new one, and the least expensive is retainment. So that's a good summation of some of the things that are really driving value in the market right now. So I think, to kind of wrap things up, let's talk maybe a couple points each on entering this market. Like we talked about growing and then exiting. And so on the entry side, I think you have to know what you want. Mm-hmm. Are you wanting, if you're interested in participating in this market, whether you're a family office that has some thesis, or you were like us and you're younger searcher type, like, do you want to go traditional alarm? Are you interested in that residential path? Are you more interested, maybe you have a background in the GC world and you want to go heavy construction, RFP land? You have to really know what you're after, because there's actually quite a bit of variability in this space.
Yeah, I would say they're almost like different businesses, right? I mean, like, I would say that the way that they go to market, the way they staff, the way they think about financing is all very different. We've actually, just being in the industry and trying to find good businesses to buy, have had an opportunity to meet with owners that kind of have all three of those types. We've met with folks that are really residential heavy. We've looked at folks that are really construction heavy, or what we'd say ground up heavy. And there are pros and cons to all of those different types or flavors of security, or, what we'd say life safety businesses. I think, the hokey phrase, the niches and the riches, like you can find a lot of money when you can figure out your niche. I think figuring that out upon entry is going to be the most important thing. And if you don't have a clear path for that and how you think you're going to scale, like one of the things that Stephen and I did is we mapped it out 10 years forward. So we said, hey, this is the type of business we want to buy, and here's how we want to evolve and grow that business. It wasn't magical. It was a business plan is ultimately, but we just spent time mapping it forward out 10 years. And so I would agree with Stephen that you got to kind of find what your niche is going to be and really double down on that and not waver. It's easy to waver and say, man, I can't find a deal right now. Maybe I'll just be willing to settle on this other type of business. Don't do that. Because if you don't know what you're doing, if you think you're buying an alarm business and you go in and you try to buy a ground up security business, those are truly two totally different businesses. Like it would be even challenging for me to go buy a business that's just ground up right now, even with having the experience I have, because it's just so different from what we do and what we're used to. So yeah, I think Stephen's right. It's just finding that entry point and making sure you know what you want.
Yeah. And then kind of in the middle on the growth side, we've already kind of talked about it, but to kind of restate, a heavier focus on recurring revenue, a repeatable sales process, oversight on ops and estimation that you can measure, because you can't improve something if you can't measure it.
Preach.
Yeah. And then I think, also engaging your existing customers and mining them for opportunities and really going after the cross-sell, upsell, using that repeatable sales process, is going to drive a ton of growth.
Yeah, I would just double down on what you're saying about you can't improve what you can't measure, and that starts with technology. I think what happens is a lot of these operators think, man, I'm going to continue to grow year over year, but I don't really want to change anything, so I'm just going to throw more salespeople at the problem and hope I'm going to grow. And it's just, you've got to take a holistic approach. Like if your business, if you're committed to scale, which you have to decide, there are operators out there that are not committed to scale, right? So if you're committed to scale, you've got to be equally as committed to change and failure, because you're going to implement technology and hire salespeople and hire operational people, and they're not going to work out. And you're going to
Yep.
roll out processes that you think are brilliant, and they're
Mhm.
not brilliant, and nobody cares about them, and they're not good. So you've got to get comfortable, and you've got to set a culture internally of being willing to adapt to change. And that's such a, I don't know, like corporate thing, like, whoa, we love change. It's like, no, it's just true. It's just true. Like if
Mhm.
you've been doing something for 20 years and you want to scale, hiring that sales, there's no magic bullet. There's not like a secret solution. It's all the things all the time. It's operational changes, it's technology improvements, it's sales and marketing spend increase. And as you pull all the different levers and you start to figure out what's important and what's working, then you can really start to direct those dollars and those investment dollars into the places that are going to drive the most amount of growth.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of those things are going to equate to a really strong exit. One last thing that we really haven't touched on, which may sound obvious, but we've seen on many occasions not be dialed, is financial oversight. Having really clean books. And if you are going to go try to march towards some significant exit, you have to have really strong financials that are clear, that are organized, that you yourselves can learn from and act on. And so if you're driving blind, that probably is going to equate to an exit as well that's not as significant as you might hope. And so that's another element I think that's important, as someone in this industry looks towards the future, is, you're going to get grilled in due diligence.
Yeah.
And so that's just a part of the reality. And so I think that's a good kind of good recap on all the different elements.
I would say on the financial piece, don't leave money on the table because your books aren't clean. If you are you should not be surprised about the valuation of your business when you get your first LOI. By the way, you actually don't have to have an understanding that you don't have to wait for an LOI, your first LOI or first offer, to know what your business is worth. There's a tremendous amount of resources out there. Get educated, but it starts with just getting your financial house in order. And spending money on that. Unfortunately, you cannot do it all yourself. So throwing more of your own self at that problem is probably not the answer. And having to spend, cost-centered dollars, you're probably not going to see that back in a short period of time. So yeah, I agree. Very important.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to, keeping this running, and we have some upcoming episodes that are going to be fun. We're going to dive more into specifics on sales and marketing. Some of those strategies, I know that you will get geeked out on that. And we'll talk more, I think entire episodes on pipeline gen and what we've done from our international team. Like, there's just several different things that I think that will be really exciting to unpack. And so thanks for listening. And if you've enjoyed it, like and subscribe.